Hey, it's Dr. Schmidt. So I want to go over homeopathy, a natural therapy that was basically destroyed from within like over 80 years ago. I'm going to go into the history of it. And the reason why I'm doing this now is because 5 years ago, I did this video right here, how homeopathy works. You probably never heard this before. And I did not expect the response that it got. And there's a lot of thumbs down, 695 thumbs down at this stage, and 823 thumbs up. And I kind of go over how you can make some homeopathic remedies and how it works. And it got this such a negative response. I haven't said anything now for 5 years. Well, a couple years ago, I got this book, and it's called Brass Tacks. And this is an interview of a doctor of homeopathy. And he was interviewed in 1984. He was 95 years old at the time. And there was a time, like 100 years ago and more, when half the doctors across the whole country were homeopathic doctors, and the other half were regular, like allopathic doctors. And they worked side by side in hospitals all across the country. And that's gone. The homeopathic field is basically gone now. I mean, you can still find homeopathic remedies at natural health food stores, not at like a GNC, but like a local store. You can find them online, and then naturopathic doctors, herbalists, natural doctors will have homeopathic remedies. And I'm going to go through some of them at the very end of this. But I'm going to show you the history as to why homeopathic medicine has completely disintegrated. I'm going to explain exactly why. And one of the points is that there's a whole army of people that want it to die completely. And it seems like year after year, there's some sort of a bill that might get passed that would destroy the profession and make it completely illegal. At the very end, I'm going to go over that because there is a deadline of May 22nd that you have to submit your opinion on homeopathy, or else it will completely disappear as a profession, and that'll be at the end of this video. But if it goes away, what it means to you as a consumer is that you'll have less choices. And that is the goal for many people, that they want you to not have very many choices in your healthcare purchasing power. They want to reduce your ability to decide. They want to reduce your choices so that you have fewer and fewer things that you can educate yourself on and use to improve your health. Now, there are some people that do really well with homeopathy, and there are some people that don't care for it. But that's the point of a free market, is you can try it. If you like it, good, keep going. If you don't like it, then stop it. But don't try to stop other people from using it. But I'm going to get into why homeopathy is actually weaker now than what it was in 1910, 1920, even in the late 1800s. The history of homeopathy starts with a guy named Hahnemann, and this is now 1796, when he had vials of a bark from a tree, and you take these solutions, and it would actually cause the symptoms of malaria. Now, he studied the ancient medical philosophers of ancient Greece, 2,000 years earlier. And what happened was he would have his solutions in a buggy drawn by a horse, and he would see patients in the morning and he'd see patients in the afternoon. He made the discovery that the patients in the afternoon got better, faster and more easily than the people in the morning. And he surmised that is because the remedies would bounce in the buggy all day long, and so the people that got the remedies that were shaken up more had better results. So that was kind of the discovery of modern day homeopathy, and he put down some very specific rules to follow. So number one is that when you dilute, what you do is you take a substance that's poisonous and you dilute it, and then you give it to the patient, and you dilute it 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, and then that's it. So the dilutions are low. The other thing that you do is you give the remedy initially often, and then the third thing is that you do one remedy at a time. So this was 1796 when he first figured out the solution about malaria, and in 1805, at the age of 50, he wrote his first book. And as the years went on, as he saw more patients and he studied the subject and got clinical results, he kept updating his book. Now, through the 1800s, there were more and more homeopathic schools, and this, at the same time, there was the foundation of the American Medical Association. Now, the AMA was sort of a militarized aspect of pharma, and that's still true today. The AMA is quite weak now compared to what it was from the late 1800s through 1980, basically, but the AMA has lost a lot of their power. But this book right here I picked up is called Brass Tacks. I got this a couple years ago at King's Books used bookstore. It's the largest used bookstore in the whole United States. It's in downtown Detroit. I had no idea what I was buying when I bought this book. But here it is, Dr. John Renner, homeopath. He started his practice in 1920. And as I said before, in 1984, he's actually 95 years old, and he was interviewed. And I pulled, I read the whole thing. I took notes right here. I got these little note tabs. But what he said was, he tells a story about how after 1920, there's a group of people that came into the homeopathic profession, and they were fully intending to change the profession. And so, according to Hahnemann, you do a dilution 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. You still have the physical properties of that herb or whatever, or the toxin in the remedy. There's still the physical aspect of it. But this new generation of people that came in past 1920, they were wanting to dilute the remedies more and more and more. Like, so 100x, that means you dilute it 100 times. And what Dr. Renner is saying is that the more you dilute it, it doesn't mean that it's going to work. The other thing Renner said was you do one therapy at a time. And this new generation of people came in and they did multiple therapies together in one remedy. And then Renner tells a story about a patient that was on psychiatric medication, and he was just going crazy. And they're in the hospital and higher up in the building, and the guy wanted to jump out the window. So they had people there 24 hours a day in order to prevent him from committing suicide. And they put him on more psychiatric medication. And you know how psych meds, they mess with your mind. They can cause total depression. I had a friend commit suicide last year because of psychiatric medication. So Dr. Renner came in and he gave the guy one remedy, and it didn't work in the first few minutes. And then he gave the guy another remedy, a different remedy, and he started to calm down a little bit. 1 minute later, he gave him a second dose. 3 minutes later, he gave him a third dose. 5 minutes later, he gave him a fourth dose. That's how you dose homeopathic remedies. Now, in the 1940s, when this new generation came in and they're actually destroying the homeopathic profession, what they would do is they had a patient with whatever symptoms, and they looked at the symptoms, and they would meet 1 month later. They prescribed one dose of a remedy, and they gave it to the patient, and they waited 1 more month to find out what would happen. That's not how you dose it. You do multiple remedies. And what happened with this guy, after 2 hours, he settled down, and then he went to sleep, woke up the next morning. He was completely fine. He was off all the medications, and he demanded to go home, and he went home. He basically had a good night's sleep. So another aspect of homeopathy that's missing is the diagnosis. So you don't go off of symptoms initially. In the 1800s, the doctors all learned that you don't go by symptoms. You go by the physiology. And he actually has a quote in here to follow the physiology. I don't know if you've ever heard that term before. If you've seen my videos before, I talk about this all the time. So what Dr. Renner would do was percuss the organs. He would tap on the heart in different locations. He would tap on the thyroid, the spleen, the gallbladder, the liver, the intestines, and the adrenals and kidneys. And he would listen to what the organ sounded like. He would go through the whole body, and then he would do it again. And he could tell what organs were dysfunctional. And then based on that, he would give various remedies. So he said, you don't listen to the symptoms. Yeah, okay, you do want to take a history. You do want to know what's going on symptom-wise. But you're not basing the therapy on symptoms. And we all know that that's all lost. If the hospitals lose power, the doctors are completely lost because they don't look at the body. Now, I remember one time, a long time ago, I had a patient come in, and he was Down syndrome. He was older. He was like 60-something years old. His dad was in his 80s, and his dad has been taking care of him his whole life. And he had this horrible abdominal pain, and he would yell. And they took him to the hospital, and they called it hepatitis. Well, when I was analyzing his body, I put my hand on his pancreas, and he yelled out. And I said, how can it possibly be hepatitis when all the pain is at his pancreas? The doctors completely missed it. And maybe the lab test showed that he had hepatitis. Maybe he had high liver enzymes. But regardless, it was totally his pancreas. So in the book, Dr. Renner actually talks about the University of Michigan Homeopathic School, and it was around for almost 50 years, but there was so much infighting between what was called the traditional homeopaths versus the high potency thinking of this new generation of people coming in that actually destroyed the profession, that they did great research here. So they're percussing the organs, listening to see which one may be inflamed or fibrotic, and then addressing it with the appropriate homeopathic remedies. And then, and this is on animal models, then they would sacrifice the animal and look at what happened to the organs. So they're actually addressing the physiology and organ function. So they did this great research, but there was so much infighting that this school closed down, and the lead researcher went to another homeopathic school in, I think it was Pennsylvania, and that school closed down. And at this time now, there's only like 6 good schools left, whereas before there were schools all across the country. So it just goes to show you that you can have this mentality of a group of people, maybe like you can call it maybe a generation. They're going to disregard the fundamental facts, axioms, or principles of a particular profession and just destroy it because everything old is bad or some, whatever reason. Renner says, our college would probably not have had to close except for the fighting between practitioners. His college was in Chicago. The bickering just wouldn't stop. It just kept getting worse all the time. These potency people were so enthusiastic. That's that new generation of people coming in. They were really sellers and pushers of their ideas and were feeding people that philosophy. But the results, that was an entirely different story. As time went on, they just didn't have the results anymore that homeopathy had in earlier years. Without results, they couldn't hold their patients, and homeopathy began to lose out. I told them they were not even teaching Hahnemann homeopathy anymore. They were going into a far exaggerated, built-up philosophy of potencies that Hahnemann never taught at all. It isn't in his books. It isn't in his original writings. I kind of think of this same scenario going on with politics right now. There's some old school philosophies in politics that have been known to work well for centuries, and there are people that just want to destroy it, and then therefore you get the results that you get based on what you believe and what you're practicing. So Dr. Renner, even in his older years, he got sick, and he went to one of these high potency homeopaths, and he did everything he said for 2 years, and Renner did not get better. And so he went back to what he knew. He did lower dose of lower potency products, 1x, 2x, 3x, and he stuck to that, and that's when he got better. Now, the other thing Dr. Renner talks about is nutrition, and he says that eating fructose, eating orange juice, eating too much fruit, this is the 1950s, there wasn't much junk food back then, people got sick, and he always looked at the diet, and he said nutrition is fundamental. The homeopathic remedies come later, so if you're eating the wrong foods, nothing works well. So he gave a lot of advice about doing a low-carb diet, avoiding fructose, because he knows that fruit damages the liver, causes non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So he was all about actually working with the physiology of the body. In this book, Dr. Renner talks about some of the more famous homeopathic patients, one of them being Mr. Kettering. And Mr. Kettering was the president of General Motors, and he had a personal homeopathic doctor that went with him everywhere he went. And Mr. Kettering was going to donate a lot of money to homeopathy, but again, there was so much infighting. He donated to the other group of people. That's the allopathic doctors. Now, I got to explain what allopathy means. So the homeopaths would give a remedy that caused symptoms. So let's say you had a cold, and then you would take a remedy that in a well person would cause the cold symptoms. All right, so it's a like helps like. Now, the allopathic term means trading one disease for another. The word allopathy was created by the homeopaths as a derogatory statement. So the allopaths were giving a poison, and they were actually trying to suppress the symptoms, whereas the homeopaths were trying to exaggerate the symptoms, and that was part of the healing process, is the body's showing you various symptoms as it's getting better. So they would accelerate the healing cycle, whereas in allopathy, they would squash the healing cycle. So those are the two philosophies. We got the homeopaths and the allopaths. Well, Mr. Kettering donated, and here's this Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. You may have heard of Sloan Kettering before. Now it's a big medical conglomerate, if you will. Another one is the Rockefellers. John D. Rockefeller. He lived almost to be 100 years old. He also had a personal homeopathic doctor that went with him everywhere he went. And Rockefeller did not donate any money to the homeopathic profession because of the infighting. He donated all of his money and all of his investments into the allopathic profession. And that's why we have the allopathic doctors being so powerful and the pharmaceutical companies being so powerful, because initially it was Rockefeller that started the big push that America and the rest of the world is going to take poisonous drugs instead of homeopathic remedies. And that's because Rockefeller wanted to put his money into a profession where he would get a return on his investment. And if you have a profession that's fighting and disintegrating before your own eyes, you're not going to invest in that profession. Now, regarding this current pandemic, I'm going to share with you a story about homeopathy versus allopathy in a pandemic that occurred. This is the Spanish flu of 1918. Important businesses in Chicago knew about homeopathy through the statistics of epidemics and the influenza epidemics in particular. Montgomery Ward had a big sales place on the Chicago River as their corporate headquarters, with a health clinic staffed by homeopathic doctors. One of our homeopathic college faculty members was there supervising it himself. During the influenza epidemic of 1918, Montgomery Ward lost only 8 employees due to influenza. During the same epidemic, Marshall Field, the large department store, lost several hundred employees, and Sears Roebuck, too, about the same size as Montgomery Ward, lost several hundred. Mortality rates of the regular physicians were recorded at 20 to 40%, and for the homeopaths, 5 or 6%, and sometimes even less. So even in pandemics, homeopathy beat allopathy with these numbers. And also in New York City, there was a metropolitan hospital, and they had such good results, the lowest death rate of any hospital in the city, that they awarded him, the homeopathic doctor, a banner to signify their appreciation. So all the treatments at the time were outstanding. Homeopathy as a clinical entity was shown to be far ahead of any other kind of medication. Later, it went into disrepute when we had people with fantastic ideas who said, if tinctures can do this, then we'll divide them more and we'll get better results, which is not a true statement. They were not homeopathic doctors anymore because they went off the path. The results never came and homeopathy lost its appeal. So when you look at current research and clinical studies, there's a lot of failures in homeopathy. And you can go back 100 years and you can see that clinical results got worse and worse. But if you look at like 50 years ago, 20 years ago, and the clinical results, it's just not there. And there's so much research showing homeopathy does not work. It's because it's not done the correct way according to the way Hahnemann put it together. So you do some incorrect dosing, incorrect manufacturing, and incorrect tinctures, and of course it's not going to work because you're not doing it the right way. So with that video I did 5 years ago, there's links where people showed me like, look, homeopathy doesn't work, but I see it in my practice. I see it work. Now my practice is mostly nutritional, 99% nutrition, and nutrition is chemistry, and homeopathy moves chemistry, right? But now remember, the correct homeopathy, where they dilute it one time like 1x, or they dilute it twice like 2x, there's still the physical properties in there. There's still the chemical properties in there. So that's why Dr. Renner's homeopathy works, is because it's not all energy. There's chemistry in there. All right, to wrap this up before I get into the actual remedies that I have to show you, a couple more statements. He says, we must get down to brass tacks. That's the title of the book. Brass Tacks, Oral Biography of a 20th Century Physician, A Living History. And he says, we must apply the remedy not to the symptomatology or to the modalities, but directly to the physiological condition in the body. So I've been saying follow the physiology. So most medicine follows this symptomatology. He's saying don't do that. Now the other thing is, or not to the modality. That's another good point. So there's people that learn a technique, they learn a philosophy, they learn a modality, and they apply it to everybody without thinking about the person in front of them. Like, like there's, I went to once a body worker and I had a particular condition, and for 20 years she's been doing this one technique on everybody, and I'm sure she got results, but it didn't help me. Now, if she just thought a little bit and looked at the physiology, like what was going on with my muscles, it, then she may have gotten some results. But it's all about the physiology. The last thing I want to state from this book is um, his remedies are 1x, 2x, 3x, up to 6x, so they're diluted up to 6 times, but they get less and less potent. And he says those medicines have enough material substance in them when they're at 1x or 3x to activate the function of organs they are directly similar to, and that is nutrition again. So original homeopathy actually was just a subset of nutrition as a therapy. There's a connection between medicine and food, and we can't escape it. So he's actually combining some nutrition with medicine. Homeopathic medicine is a medicine, and their main book is called Materia Medica. And that's exactly what this bill is right here. It says, save homeopathy. The FDA is proposing rules for homeopathy that could regulate it out of existence. The deadline is May 23rd. So on this website, they go over various changes in policies that the FDA is trying to push through. Remember, FDA is just a bureaucratic entity that was, nobody was elected in the FDA, and they get a lot of money from pharma. So in a strange twist, the FDA's proposed guidelines would allow the agency to ban a particular homeopathic remedy simply because an increasing number of people are using it. And it sounds like social media, because there's a video that goes viral, more and more people are watching it, YouTube will take it down. And they've seen this over and over again since June of 2019 when YouTube changed their algorithm. They won't allow any of my videos to go viral. And through the spring of 2020 with the COVID scenario, there are some medical doctors that their information was very attractive to a lot of people. Their videos went viral and then YouTube took them down. In many instances, YouTube took them down because they went viral. You can still find the same information in other videos that are more science-based with like bigger words, and it's harder to understand, but it's the same information, and they're not going viral. YouTube keeps those up. So I'll put the link below. If you choose to participate, you can leave an FDA comment in the US, and they're looking to get a goal of 100,000 comments. And whether or not you choose to use homeopathy for you or your family, it's more about freedom of choice. Maybe in the future you will want to use it. So I want to share with you some remedies that I've been using. And now this is my pulse in 2016 when I had black mold and I didn't know it. This is August 10th through August 18th. And one of my symptoms was high blood pressure. Another one was racing pulse. And I remember in the July, I worked outside. It was humid. It was hot. I was doing yard work. My pulse was 130 when it came in the house. I took a shower, and now it's 125. Your pulse is supposed to go down to normal within 30 seconds easily. So it took me about a day and a half, 2 days to get it below 80. 60 to 80 is normal. But I'm going to show you that here, August 10th, and my pulse was 73, and I was really calm, trying to relax. So I started taking a product called Mycotox. It's from a company called Energetics. Their bottles look like this. And on August 10th, my pulse was 73, and I started taking it every single day. The next day, I got it down to 64, 61, 58, 56, 54. And each time, I was just laying down, trying to relax and calm my breathing down, calm my pulse down. It was the Mycotox that was able to help me get my pulse down. Now, this is August, and my pulse was high because of black mold. It wasn't until October 25th when I found the black mold, then I could actually address the cause. So this Mycotox was helping me deal with the symptoms and help me keep my head above water, if you will. And then when I was able to fix the cause, the Mycotox helped me even more because I was able to address the cause. So this is an example I personally felt benefits from taking a homeopathic remedy. So keep that in mind. You still have to fix the cause, which is right here. And then you're trying to fix the mechanism. And then over here, you're feeding the organs to get rid of symptoms. Now in here we have, I put 6 circles. One of the circles is homeopathy. I also have glandular therapy, whole food nutrition, herbs, stem cells like DNA, and ketosis and fasting. So that's where homeopathy belongs in your healthcare plan. It's this last circle where you're trying to feed and uphold the health of your organs so that symptoms go away. If you're trying to do that without addressing your diet, without addressing a cause like mercury toxicity, for example, or maybe you have an infection in your jaw, you got to go to the dentist. That's in the causes section. That's in the first circle right here. And then B vitamin deficiency. I got other plenty of videos about the mechanism of chronic disease. There's many mechanisms, but there's one main one. So homeopathy belongs in this last circle right here, where you got a lot of things under control and now you're just trying to help those organs independently. So I'm gonna go through some remedies really quickly, and I'm not gonna show you all of them, but like I can just show you, like, this company's called Energetics, and I don't know if I get that to focus, but it's called GB Tone. Yeah, there you go, GB Tone Homeopathic Remedy. And that's what that bottle looks like. There's another company that we use, and it's called Physica. So sinus tox for your sinuses, homeopathic remedy. So as I go through these, I'm not going to show you the names. It's just more for me to remember what the products are for. So obviously, sinus tox cleans out the sinuses. This is Gyne Tox for female gynecological problems. And then the GB Tone for gallbladder, Adrenal Tone for adrenals. It's in the name. You know, it's not too hard to think with this. Kidney Tone for the kidneys. CV Tone stands for cardiovascular. And then Hypothalamopath for the hypothalamus. So it's rare that I use this, but I have one patient in particular, and as I'm talking, I know she knows who she is, but she does really well with Hypothalamopath for many reasons, for many symptoms. Now, you could say, well, what are the symptoms that come from the hypothalamus? It's a very hard question to answer because the hypothalamus is in the center of your brain. It's nerve tissue. It tells the pituitary to start making hormones. The pituitary is the master gland, and it tells all the other organs to make hormones. So you got to know the physiology. It's not about symptoms, right? It's more about what organs need help and how do you find it. So we do muscle testing, the muscle testing procedure to figure that out. So in that book, Dr. Renner, he's percussing the organs, and that's how he finds it. We do muscle testing of the organs. So it's genius. Muscle testing is how you locate problems. Location of information is part of genius. All right, now let's talk about causes. Like in those three circles, you got toxicity as one of the causes. Here's Agricord. So that detoxifies agricultural chemicals. Here's metal cord for metals. And here's dental cord for dental issues. And here we have vac cord, vaccines, and medicord, medications. These cause problems. These are toxic. And now you have inflammation from toxicity. Inflammatox helps your body reduce inflammation. And let's say you catch the flu cord, and you have a virus, virucord, right? It's pretty simple to work with. And let's say you're all stressed out. You need some relaxed tone, or maybe some relief tone, or maybe some calm 5. See how it works? And you think, well, I got these, I'm all tense. I'm all like I'm all stressed out. I've been at home for 2 months. And this could potentially help you, right? Or maybe need some hypothalamopath. This is where a good holistic doctor comes in, where they do muscle testing, and yeah, they might do some lab work, but lab work actually shows you this much information. It's great information. It's solid information. It's worth doing. And the muscle testing expands the amount of information that you can gather. And a good holistic doctor does both the laboratory work and some sort of a body feedback information technique like muscle testing. All right, so I'm stopping right there. Let me wrap this up. Now, read below the comments, and you'll see people start to attack homeopathy. And you look at their biography, if you're able to, on their YouTube channel or whatever, and you'll see that they're typically very allopathic, very pharmaceutically driven, or science driven. And ultimately, they want to restrict your choices. So it's not necessarily about getting people better. It's more about you can't have these things. And they'll make up a reason why. and science is one of the reasons. But like I said, the science on homeopathy has been a disaster for more than 50 years because of the destruction of the original principles put forth by Hahnemann, who did the great research, and then a generation of new people came in and they destroyed the profession. So if we can get back to really good homeopathy, really good tinctures, and done properly, then you get results. And just to reiterate, I do very, very little homeopathy. My other practitioners in my office, they do more. But again, it's your choice. And results are the only thing that matters. Thanks for watching. Please give me a thumbs up, share with somebody who's interested in natural health, and then hit subscribe and make sure you hit the bell for notifications also.